Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Hello po.
Good afternoon po, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes po, sir.
Yes po.
Okay, so our topic for today will be about differential operators, actually solving for higher um, order differential equations. Okay, so we're done with solving for the first order DE. So now we'll focus on solving for higher order differential equations. So let me first introduce differential operators. Okay, so today I'm going to define or to give you or discuss the properties of differential operators and apply these properties in solving differential equations. So actually I have highlighted two or three properties and prior to dealing with higher order differential equations. Okay, so we define that capital letter D, okay, or big letter D as a differential operator. So it's actually a new notation for differentiation and yeah, or derivatives. So for example, okay, so we have this um, representation of dy over dx. So this dy, okay, the operator d times y means first differentiation of y with respect to the variable x. So when you see d squared y, it's actually equivalent to the second derivative of y with respect to x, or to differentiate the expression y with respect to x. Okay, and so on. Okay, so kth derivative or kth differentiation of the variable y of y with respect to x. Okay, so ibig sabihin yan, it's to differentiate. Okay, ibig sabihin ng operator na to. Now, there are several properties written in the book, nakasulat sa libro, but I have just highlighted, I think three properties which will be useful for our next discussion, which is the nth order linear homogeneous differential equations with constant coefficient. Now, so it says here, if D denotes the operator, which is a differentiation with respect to x, then the function f of d is written as, okay, so f of d is equal to a sub 0 d raised to n plus a sub 1 d raised to n minus 1 plus a sub 2 d raised to n minus 2, and so on until we have a sub n. We call this the linear operator of order n. Again, f of d, so is the linear operator of order n into this format, okay? Now, the second property is that d raised to k e raised to mx is equal to m raised to k e raised to mx. Okay, so it's not actually na d raised to k siya. Kasi nga, di ba sabi natin, the d denotes the differentiation, di ba, or operator na ibig sabihin to differentiate. Pero pag binasa lang, di ba, naka-d raised to k. Ibig sabihin ng k na yan is number na kung ilang beses i-differentiate yung given function. Okay, again, this is a property, so it will not be, um, dealing in the entire class, explaining these properties. Just a brief discussion of these properties. So to illustrate this one, okay, so pag sinabi natin na d cube, okay, of e raised to mx, it's similar to m cube e raised to mx. Now, yung m here is a constant. Okay, take note, m is a constant. So this this means that we are going to differentiate the exponential function e raised to mx 3 times. Ang ibig sabihin ng d cube na to. Okay? Yung operator na to. Now, so sinabi lang dito na if you are going to differentiate this exponential function, 3 times, it will be equal to m cube e raised to mx. Now, paano nangyari yon? So like pag dating sa first differentiation, okay, una muna, the first differentiation, so you spare muna natin yung dalawa differentiation na methods or d squared. So d squared times d is d cubed, di ba? So this means that you have to differentiate exponential function e raised to mx. And it's equal to, so how do you differentiate exponential function? So it's e raised to mx, we just copy this exponential function and then differentiate natin yung mx with respect to the independent variable na x. So that is equal to m. Kaya meron tayong m, diba, as the coefficient of this exponential function. Now this becomes the expression that you're going to differentiate. So meron pa tayong dalawang beses, diba, na magdi-differentiate. Now for second differentiation, so this d squared will be equivalent to d times the derivative or derivative of this expression, m e raised to mx. Okay? So since m is a constant, so just copy m and then differentiate natin ito e raised to mx. We copy e raised to mx and then differentiate mx. It will result to m. So now, if you multiply m and m, so it will become m squared. Okay, so this is now the resulting expression. And then finally, differentiating for the third time, it will give us, so just copy m squared. Okay, and then differentiate e raised to mx. So you copy e raised to mx and then differentiate mx. You have m. M times m squared is equal to m cubed. Questions? None. So that's the second property. So, okay. So let's skip this one. F of d is linear operator, right? Yeah, linear operator of order n. Now, so we have this equivalent, e raised to mx times f of m. This f of m is an expression, okay? Yeah, replacing d by m. And what is that m? So if m is a root of the auxiliary equation defined by f of m equal to 0, then, okay, f of d, this expression will be equal to 0 then. Okay, f of d times e raised to mx. Tandaan, f of m equal to 0 is the auxiliary equation and that m is the root of the auxiliary equation. Okay. So there's a note. The auxiliary equation is obtained by replacing d by m in our equation na f of d. So ganun lang. If you are asked to determine or to obtain the auxiliary equation, you just replace the d operator by m. I think there are several properties pa, but explain ko na lang the other properties in our discussion for the general linear homogeneous differential equation with constant coefficient. And general linear because it's not limited to first order DE. So we'll be dealing with the second order, third, and nth order na differential equation. But this time, okay, let's focus on homogeneous differential equation with constant coefficient. Okay, ano ba yung form ng general linear homogeneous DE with constant coefficient? So ito yung itsura niyan. So you have a sub 0. So these a's na nasa or before the derivatives, these are constant coefficient. Okay, please take note. A sub 0, a sub 1, hanggang a sub n. Yan ay mga constants. Okay? So yun yung characteristic nitong linear homogeneous differential equation with constant coefficient. And pag naka-equate sa 0, yan, equal to 0, yan, masabi natin na homogeneous yung DE na to. So this form of DE is linear in y. Of course, yung dependent variable natin dito is y, and our independent variable is x. And yung right-hand side must be equal to 0. Okay? For a first order na DE, yan, paano natin siya represent? First order na DE with constant coefficient, tapos homogeneous. Tandaan laging nasa right-hand side is equal to 0. Okay, sulat ko lang. Kita nyo ba? Ako lang ba nakikita nyo? So, first order, dy over dx plus ay equal to 0. So, this is a first order linear. Ayan. Linear siya. Ayan, linear in y and equal to 0. Yung right-hand side mo is 0. So, ibig sabihin yan, yung q of x mo nasa right-hand side is 0. So, any constant naman so is a pure function of the independent variable. In this case, 0 siya. Okay, so yung a na to, gagamitin natin. A is a constant coefficient. Ayan, gagamitin natin yan para ma-determine yung integrating factor. Pero dito sa topic natin, for dealing with higher order DE, will not be integrating para makuha yung solution. So instead, we'll focus on the the auxiliary equation, yung finding for the roots of that auxiliary equation. So yun yung magiging hindi na tayo gagamit ng integration dito. Okay. So balik tayo sa algebra. Okay, so questions? Now, so just imagine kapag ito yung ginagamit natin na notation for higher derivatives, like fifth derivative or fifth order DE. So utilizing this notation. So medyo siya, masakit sa mata, di ba? Or baka nakakalito. In that case, kasi napagkakamalan na exponent yung n na yan. So it's actually not. So para lang maiwasan natin yung ganun. So we can actually transform into a compact form utilizing the differential operator. So f of d of y is equal to 0. Okay, nakalagay lang dyan na may y because to indicate that y is the dependent variable. Okay? Pero linear operator siya. Okay, linear differential operation itong f of d na to. Okay? Are you ready to solve? Now let's focus on the solutions of general linear homogeneous DE. So general siya kasi nga nth order na yung pinag-uusapan natin. To illustrate first itong solution na to. So balikan natin yung first order na linear DE. Of course, with a constant coefficient tapos homogeneous, itong sinulat ko kanina sa likod ko. Ayan. Nakita niyo ba yung whiteboard? Hindi.
Kita po.
Yan, kita niyo na ako. Yan. Okay, so this is a first order linear differential equation. So yung solution actually nito is may exponential solution siya. Bakit sinabi na exponential solution? Sige, so balikan natin yung paano mag-solve ng linear. Okay, take note yung nasa kanan is 0. So basta constant or 0. So still pure function pa rin naman yun. So mangyayari lang, may C ka na kaagad doon kapag ito naman naka-standard form na rin, di ba? So yung ating P as a function of X dito is A. Yung A is constant, di ba? Yung Q as a function of X is 0. So we will determine the integrating factor that is E raised to the integral of A and P as a function of X times dx, di ba? So A dx. So, ibig sabihin, the integrating factor is e raised to ax. Okay, nasundan pa? Now, we will multiply the standard form by this integrating factor para maging exact siya. And in linear equation, we should take note that the left-hand side of the equation should always be equal to the integrating factor, e raised to ax, times the dependent variable, which is y, and equal to, since 0 na dito, so 0 times the exponential function, 0 na yan, so ang mangyayari, you just have to write na lang yung c. Okay? Kaya nga exponential solution siya. So if you are to solve for y, anong gagawin natin to solve for y? Siyempre, ilipat lang natin tong, or we divide both sides by e raised to ax. Yeah. So we have y equals, kita pa ba? Masyado nang mababa. Dito na lang. So y is equal to c e raised to, so ang gagawin ko lang, tataas ko lang to. So magbabago yung sign ng exponent ni exponential function ax. Okay. So ganyan yung mangyayari. So dito sa first order lang to. Okay. But because of, the idea na linear siya, homogeneous equal to 0, okay, with constant coefficient. So yung idea of our solution is that it contains exponential function. So pag babalikan natin yung mga properties, isa-isahin natin. So you'll understand na, okay, pagka third derivative yung present, tapos linear siya, and then naka-equate sa 0. So laging exponential yung result. So having said that, balikan muna natin itong ating PowerPoint. So ayan, may subscript nang nilagay, although first order lang siya. So you don't need to write subscript, pero once na you are dealing with higher order. So pag sinabi natin na second order, so you're expecting to have two arbitrary constants. So hindi pwedeng C pareho ilalagay mo. So naka-label na yung C, yung first C as C sub 1, and the other arbitrary constant is labeled as C sub 2. Okay? Kapag third order siya, or third derivative, yung pinakamataas na derivative na makikita mo dun sa equation, tatlong arbitrary constants, and these arbitrary constants are unique, di ba? C sub 1, C sub 2, and C sub 3. Okay? For your general solution. Do you follow?
Yes po.
Now let's go to the roots of auxiliary equation. Yan, sabi ko nga kanina, di ba, we are not going to integrate anymore para ma-determine natin yung solution ng ng higher order DEs. But we'll be dealing with the auxiliary equation. So yung mga roots kasi nito, yan, may apat tayo na cases, guys. So ano ba yung solution natin kapag case number 1? So case 1, yung roots should be distinct real roots. So distinct or different roots yan. And real, kailangan real, guys. So pag sinabi natin na real number siya, ano ba? Siyempre, the other, yung isang ano dun is imaginary, di ba? So dalawa lang yun. Real number or imaginary yung roots. Tandaan na, distinct real roots. Pangalawa naman is repeated real roots. Yun, umuulit lang. And then case number 3, distinct imaginary roots. So meron ka ng presence ng, syempre, complex number, yung may I na doon. Okay? Pero distinct. Okay, magkaiba. So yung maaring, pag nagkaiba ng sign, syempre distinct yun. Di ba? Pag sabi natin na plus I tsaka minus I, of course, magkaiba yung dalawa because of their sign. Okay, and the last case will be repeated imaginary roots. So probably we can finish hanggang case 2 lang muna tayo ngayon. And then case 3 and 4 will be discussed next meeting. Since itong topic na to, parang pinagsama ko na kasi yung, yung dalawang chapters eh. Kasi nga, some of the other properties, hindi ko na masyadong binigyan pa ng example. Kasi the most important here is the solution of higher order DE. And then we have non-homogeneous pa. So, okay. So the first case, or case number 1, distinct real roots of auxiliary equation. So paano ba yung solution nito, sir? So let the roots of the auxiliary equation be, yan, yung m na to, this is the root of the auxiliary equation. So saan ba nanggaling yung m na to? Okay, so let m sub 1, m sub 2, and so on, yeah, be the roots of the auxiliary equation. Okay. The general solution denoted by y sub c is, okay, parang may kulang. Ito ba yun? Okay, tama nga. Sige, but take note that m sub 1, m sub 2, and yeah, and so on, they are distinct real roots. Okay, magkakaiba sila. Hindi pwedeng magkapareho yan. So this is how you write your solution. So for example, tatlo yung roots na magkakaiba. Sige. Observe niyo yung solution na C sub 1, C sub 2, lahat merong exponential functions. Yung m na to is nasa exponential function siya, yung root na to, with x of course. Kasi kung wala dyang x na yan, hindi valid yung solution. Now, madilim ba guys? Or okay lang, nagbabago yung ilaw. Kita? For example,
Yes.
I have three roots. Distinct ha. So m sub 1, for example, is 1. M sub 2 is 2. And m sub 3, for example, is negative 3. Okay, so these roots, magkakaiba sila. And they are real numbers. Okay, or real roots. Hindi sila imaginary. Pag meron ng I kang makikita dyan. So, yan. It's an imaginary na number na or complex number. Now, yung solution nito, di ba, exponential solution siya. Tatlong roots means that the solution contains three arbitrary constants. Okay? And labeled as C sub 1, C sub 2, and C sub 3. Now, yung question is, pwedeng mag-interchange yung order nila. So, pwedeng, nung nag-solve ka, yung m sub 1 mo is negative 3, m sub 2 mo naman is 1 and 2. So, okay lang yon. Basta i-partner mo lang sila dun sa arbitrary constant kung saan m sub 1, c sub 1, c sub 2 kay m sub 2, ganun. So, yung solution natin, once that we have determined these roots, di ba? Example lang ko na, nakuha na natin yung mismong roots. So, yung c sub 1 natin, yung first term natin is, of course, c sub 1 times e raised to m sub 1 times x. M sub 1 is 1, so you need not to write 1 here. So, ganun na yung first term natin. Okay? Yan, ilaw. Dumidilim. Sorry. Plus c sub 2, e raised to, yung root natin na pangalawa, yung value ni m sub 2 is 2. So, 2x plus c sub 3, e raised to minus 3x. So, ganun lang yung magiging solution kapag yan, linear DE with constant coefficient basta naka-equate sa 0. Okay? Ganun. Gets? May tanong?
Wala po.
Ayan lang yung solution guys ha. Sige, mag-example na tayo. Solve the differential equation y double prime plus y prime minus 2y equal to 0. Okay. Salat ko muna dito. Ano yung steps? First, since naka-prime yan, okay lang din naman kapag naka-prime, diba? We are going to write it in a D operator na format. Okay, so given natin is y double prime plus y prime minus 2y equal to 0. Sige. Okay, kita ba? Y double prime plus y prime minus 2y equal to 0. Itong equation natin is second order differential equation. Bakit second order? Dahil sa yung mataas na derivative na present is second derivative. So, paano natin isusulat into a D operator notation? So, ang mangyayari, di ba, y double prime is just equal to d squared y plus dy minus 2y equal to 0. So ganito yung D operator na format. Ganun lang ha, guys. Kasi D means to differentiate or differentiation yan. Okay, now, pwede natin, di ba sa property, we can actually rewrite this as D squared plus D minus 2 times Y equal to 0. Okay, so hindi naman lagi na naka-prime yung mismong given kasi usually second derivative naman yung pinakamataas so pwede naka-prime pa siya na format. Pero pagdating na fifth derivative or fifth order yung DE mo, so naka-D operator na siya actually na notation. So bihira lang na yan. Unless 'di ba kapag second order lang for the entire na problem set yung gagawin nyo. So most probably may mga Y prime kang makikita, Y double prime. So ang pinakita ko lang 'di ba yung pag-transform natin or pag-put ng equation into a D operator na format. Okay, clear ba tayo dito? So D squared D, ayan. So parang ginawa ko dito, finactor out ko lang yung Y. So ang ibig lang sabihin kasi nito ni Y na to is siya yung dependent variable. Linear itong equation in terms of Y. Naka-equal sa 0, kaya homogeneous. Pag merong value na dito sa kanan like yan, function of x or pure function of x, hindi na ito homogeneous. Tandaan ha? Tapos kapag may mga x na dito, x squared, yan, hindi na constant yung coefficient. Of course. Clear? Clear tayo dyan? So we are now dealing with linear DE yan, with constant coefficient. Okay? So the next step here, kapag naka-D operator na siya, you are to put this equation, or kailangan natin isulat yung kanyang auxiliary equation. So ano yung auxiliary equation? Yun yung f of m, diba, equal to 0. And that is by, anong gagawin natin? Yung D, i-replace natin by m. Of course, sa auxiliary equation, hindi na present yung y dyan. Okay? Na-focus tayo dun sa f of D. So ano yung f of D natin? Diba? Itong D squared plus D minus 2. So isulat mo yung auxiliary equation. So yung D squared magiging M squared plus M, kita ba? Minus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so ito na yung auxiliary equation. We call this the auxiliary equation. Okay, clear? Now, ano yung next step? Kasi nakadepende yung solution natin sa value ng roots. Okay? Dahil M squared siya, quadratic, dalawa yung roots na to. Tama? M squared eh. So, dalawa yung roots. Okay? So, if-factor natin to. Yan. By inspection na lang. Ano yung possible na? Ayan. So, M squared. So, M times M. Negative 2. So, 2 tsaka 1 yung factors. Yan. So, positive 1 yung gitna. So, plus dito, minus dito. Okay? Negative 2. 2M minus M is positive M. So, ito yung ating factors. Okay? Tandaan na, walang integration dito na nagaganap. We are just factoring itong ating auxiliary equation. Okay? So, ito yung ating first na factor. M plus 2 is equal to 0. And the other one, m minus 1 equal to 0. Equate mo lang sa 0 pareho para makuha mo yung roots. So let this be your first root, m. So this will be m sub 1 equal to negative 2. And here you have m sub 2 equal to positive 1. Kayo na lang bala mag-label. So pwedeng mauna ito. Ito naman yung pangalawa. Okay, so whichever. Okay lang yun. Baka maging question sa inyo. Maging clarification nyo yun na, okay sir, paano pag nagkabaligtad sa akin? Ganyan. Okay lang yun basta present yung roots na yun. Nakuha?
Yes po.
Okay, so dahil sa, anong napansin nyo sa roots? Okay, real roots siya. And then magkaiba yung value nila, di ba? Yung isa 2, yung negative 2, yung isa naman is positive 1. So they are distinct, they are different roots. Dahil dyan, so the way you write your solution is yung kaninang pinakita ko. So yung solution natin therefore will be C sub 1 e raised to negative 2x plus C. Lahat lang yan lahat plus yan. Guys, okay? Magbabago lang yung sign niyan kapag may given condition ka na para ma-solve mo yung value ni arbitrary constant. Okay? So, the next one is C sub 2 e raised to x. Kasi 1, di ba, yung root na to. Ito na yung solution. Okay. Or, lagyan ko lang ng or ha. Baka kunyari, ang m sub 1 mo is 1 naman, tapos m sub 2 mo is negative 2. So, yung solution mo lang is y equals ayan, c sub 1 e raised to x plus c sub 2 e raised to minus 2x. Yan. Kapag distinct yung roots. Questions dito? Ganon. Case number 1. Okay. Actually, tatlo ito ha. Sige. Ako magsosolve ng pangalawa, tapos yung pangatlo kayo mag-solve. Okay? So, be ready. Kopyahin ko muna yung number. Pero syempre, papakita natin yung solution mamaya sa number 3. Okay, number 2 is for, naka-d operator na dito. 4d cube minus 13d plus 6 ayan, of y times y equal to 0. Okay, ayan. 4d cube minus 13d plus 6 ayan, equal to 0. Ayan, times y equal to 0. Dahil naka-d operator na siya, so we're going to write the auxiliary equation. Okay, ano yung auxiliary equation? F of m is equal to 0 kung saan you replace d by m. So this will be 4m cubed minus 13m plus 6 equal to 0. Tandaan ha, sa auxiliary equation, you don't need to write y. Kasi auxiliary nga lang siya, di ba? It's not the actual na equation. So just like to facilitate or to help us determine yung roots nito, which is very essential sa solution ng DE. Okay, so yung pag-determine ng roots, di ba, factoring lang siya, di ba? So maraming mga ways, di ba? So pwedeng through inspection, may mga factoring by grouping, pwedeng synthetic division, may iba using the quadratic formula. So those are, few of the techniques that you can have, or pwedeng factor grid. Ayan. Ano pa yung mga natutunan nyo nung high school kayo? Yung pagfa-factor. Okay, but for this case, pwede natin gamitin yung synthetic division. Okay? Para makuha yung roots. So by synthetic division. So whichever, kung saan kayo mas napapadali, di ba? Pero ano pa ba yung mas madali dito? Makapag-group ka ba dyan? Hindi, kasi tatlong terms lang naman. So by synthetic division, so firstly, ano yung coefficient ni m cube, m squared, ni m, tsaka ng constant natin, di ba? So here you have 4. Yung m squared, wala, di ba? So lalagay mo lang dito 0. Alam niyo ba yung synthetic, guys? Para masundan niyo ako. Okay. So m natin is minus 13, tapos yung constant natin is 6. So dito, ilalagay mo kung ano yung possible na root. So it's actually trial and error siya. Of course, you start from the smallest number. Okay? Ano ba yung possible na root? Sige. Try natin 2. Kapag 2, kailangan ma-zero yung dulo ha. So bring down mo yung 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. This will be, okay, maging positive siya. So dapat negative. Negative 2. Okay? So dahil negative 2, 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16. And then you have 3. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Ayan, so 0 na yung pinakadulo. And itong resulting na mga numbers ito, this will represent the coefficient of Yung sa 4 natin, yan yung coefficient ni m squared. This will be minus 8m. And this will be for the constant, so plus 3. Equate mo lang sa 0, this will now be the resulting, or quadratic na equation natin. At itong negative 2 na to, isa na to sa mga roots. Okay? So we now have one of the roots, di ba? M sub 1 yung label natin, equal to negative 2. Okay, so we still have two more values of m. Okay, utilizing this quadratic equation, so pwedeng, sige, by inspection tayo, or pwedeng, yung tinuro ko kanya sa isang klase, yung nag-factor grade ako kasi you will encounter. Di nakita. Di nakita, no? Sa baba. Okay, hindi nakita. So 4m squared minus 8m plus 3 equal to 0. Okay, tingnan natin. So 4m squared. So pwedeng 2m, pwedeng 4m times m, 2m times 2m. Yun yung factors ni 4m squared. So itong 3 natin, so 3 and 1. Yung gitna niya is negative 8m. So surely, di ba pinag-combine yan? Ito positive, so parehong negative dapat. It's negative. So negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. Negative 3 times 2m is negative 6m. Minus 2m is negative 8m. Okay, so tama ito yung factors. That's why you have these equations minus 3 equal to 0. And then 2m minus 1 equal to 0. So this will be our next root. Transpose lang to, magiging m sub 2 na natin ito. Yan, so positive 3 over 2. And the next one will be m sub 3, which is 1 half. Now, take a look at the roots. Negative 2, 3 halves, tsaka 1 half. So magkakaiba sila. Nasundan ba? Kita niyo ba yung mga roots?
Apa.
Medyo madilim lang, pasensya na kayo kasi makulimlim. So magkakaiba yung roots. Ayan, so ang solution nito therefore is y is equal to c sub 1. Tandaan, huwag kalimutan yung arbitrary constant. Okay? Ano yung root natin na una? So you have negative 2. So e raised to minus 2x plus c sub 2 e raised to, di ba, 3 halves of x or 3x over 2 plus c sub 3. Kita pa ba? Ayan. E raised to x over 2. Ayan. Kita pa itong y. So yan na. Now, may tanong ba dito?
Wala po ata, sir.
Sige. Try nyo yung number 3. D squared plus 2d minus 1. Ready? Papel, ballpen. Sige, while waiting, I'll just solve here. Check nyo kung distinct nga ba yung roots. Ayan. Pause ko muna. So we can solve this. We can solve the roots of this equation by quadratic formula. Kasi pag by inspection to, hindi mo kaagad, di ba? Kasi positive 2m gitna. Tsaka yung factors is negative 1 times positive 1. So, yung quadratic formula, since m ang ginagamit natin, so m is equal to negative b. Tama ba? Plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Na-recall niyo pa to? Negative b plus or minus, kaya siya plus, kaya dalawa na yung roots na makukuha natin dito because of the plus and minus. Okay, yung b natin, yung a pala natin dyan is 1, yung coefficient ni a, m squared. Yung b natin is 2, yung c is negative 1. So plug in natin sa formula. So we have negative 2 plus or minus square root of b squared natin. So that is 2 squared. So 4 minus 4 times 1 times negative 1. This becomes square root of 8 yan divided by 2 times 1. Ito yung lumabas sa calculator, di ba? So 4 plus 4 is 8. Square root of 8 is equal to, factor into is 4 times 2, di ba? So square root ng 4 is 2. So 2 square root of 2. So plug in dito. So square root of minus 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 over 2 will give us what? Na-cancel na yung 2, di ba? If you factor out 2. So negative 1 plus or minus square root of 2. Ayan. So ibig sabihin, we have two distinct, di ba, na roots. M sub 1 natin will be negative 1 plus square root of 2. And the other root is negative 1 minus square root of 2. Okay? Ganito, di ba, Aljon, no?
Yes po, sir. Same po.
So dahil dyan, magkaiba sila. Yung isa plus, isa negative. Our solution will be y equals c sub 1 e raised to negative 1 plus square root of 2. Lagyan mo lang ng parenthesis dyan times x plus c sub 2 e raised to negative 1 minus square root of 2. Exact value, guys. Exact value siya. So, yan. Times. Yan. Pag sinabi natin exact value, syempre, walang decimal. No? Okay, this is our solution. Dalawang terms because second order siya. Dalawang roots, kaya yan. Ano pa ba? Tama. Okay? So, malimit na error ng student is nakakalimutan nila yung x. Okay? Maglagay dun sa solution. Okay? Nagets? Gets. Now, let's proceed to case number 2. Ayan. Hanggang case number 2 lang tayo. Repeated real roots of auxiliary equation. Now, if the roots of the auxiliary equation are repeated, okay, for example, di ba, yung m sub 1 is equal to m sub 2 equal to m sub 3 if there are no three the same roots, then the general solution would be, ito na guys. So basically, may presence na ng x sa bawat term. Pero yung unang term natin is x raised to 0, which is 1. So di natin nilalagay yan, di ba? So c sub 1 e raised to mx. For the second term, c sub 2, x raised to 1. So in our final answer, we don't need to write 1, di ba? Understood na yun yung x is x raised to 1. And then copy e raised to mx. Tandaan niyo yung exponential function, pwedeng i-factor niyo yan kasi magkakapareho naman sila ng value ng m. The third term is c sub 3 x squared. So kung mapapansin niyo, nag-increasing yung power ni x na nasa term. For example, kung tatlong roots na magkakapareho, minus 1 ka lang lagi. So yung pinakamataas na power is 2. Nakuha? Pag apat na roots na magkakapareho, minus 1 ka lang. So yung pinakamataas na x na makita mo sa mismong solution is x cubed. Right? Nakuha yung idea? Pagka-repeating yung roots, may x na makikita doon sa mismong solution. So pwedeng mauna yung pinakamataas na x na may mataas yung power ng x or pwedeng sa dulo. Pwede rin yan. Pwedeng i-factor out din yung mismong exponential function. Okay, na-gets na kung paano isulat yung solution. Ah, kapag ano yan, pag sa integration yan, di ba, kunyari, d cube y is equal to 0. Ganun kasi yung idea eh. So, wait lang. Stop share ko muna. Mm, ano kasi, pagka kunyari, d cube, yan, y. Actually, wala na yung 0 dun. Sige, wag na pala. Magbigay ako ng mga example ah. Yan. Na obtained na kumbaga yung roots. So, for example, tatlo yung roots, guys, na magkakapareho. So, si m sub 1 is equal sa m sub 2 equal din sa m sub 3 and that value is, for example, 2. So, tatlong 2, same roots. So, how do you write the solution? So, y is equal to c sub 1 e raised to yan, 2x. Okay, plus c sub 2, may x ka na ilalagay dyan, e raised to 2x plus c sub 3 x squared e raised to 2x. Okay, yan yung solution. Or pwedeng naka-factor out, di ba? So, e raised to, ayan, 2x times c sub 1 plus c sub 2x plus c sub 3 x squared. Okay? Ganon. So, pwedeng either of the two yung solution ninyo. Or pwedeng mauna muna itong term na to. So, c sub 1 x squared, so on. Okay? Understood? Nakuha? May tanong ba? May mga scenario ba kayo naiisip? Okay? Like, for example, combination of repeating tapos may distinct doon. Kunyari, 5 roots. Tatlong pareho, dalawang pareho. Yung dalawa na to magkapareho din silang dalawa. Sige, magay tayo. For example, ito nga, 2. Tapos meron ka pang, sige, m sub 1, m sub 2, m sub 3 is equal to 2. Tapos yung m sub 4 mo, equal din sa m sub 5, which is, for example, 1. Tandaan na ito ay galing sa fifth order na DE. Fifth order, limang roots. Okay? At example lang to. So yung, how do you write the solution? So y is equal to e raised to 2x, yan, c sub 1 plus c sub 2x plus c sub 3 x squared. Tandaan na yung pinakamataas na power ni x is 2 because of, tatlo yung magkakapareho na roots. And then i-add lang natin to. So plus, anong function natin? So e raised to x lang din times. Since dalawa lang sila, so c sub, mag-continue ka lang ng subscript. Okay? Hindi pwedeng c sub 1 ulit kasi magkaiba yun sila. So instead of c sub 1, you write c sub 4 plus c sub 5x. Okay? Nakuha nyo na kung paano isusulat. Siyempre, 5 kasi yung roots, di ba? So 5 arbitrary constants. Hindi pwedeng c sub 1 ulit tsaka c sub 2. So mag-continue lang yung subscript. Okay na? Nasundan?
Yes po.
Sige, thank you sa pag-respond. Sige, solve natin to. Solve the differential equation y triple prime minus y double prime minus y prime plus y equal to 0. Okay, mukhang ano to by grouping ito. Tapos yung pangalawa is synthetic division. Okay. So, ganun lang siya, guys. Solve natin yung number 1. Kopyahin ko muna. Y triple prime minus Y double prime minus Y prime plus Y equal to 0. Madali lang, di ba? No? Ito yung topic na, nako, chicken. Sige. Pero sa ano pa lang to ha, homogeneous. Pagdating sa non-homogeneous. So, tingnan natin kung kaya pa. Tingin ko naman kaya niya. Okay, first muna, isulat natin into the operator na format. Okay, so d cubed minus d squared is d plus 1 times y equal to 0. And then write the auxiliary equation. So m cubed minus m squared minus m plus 1 equal to 0. Now, factor by grouping. Ganun lang yan. So, i-group natin itong dalawang to. So, marunong kayo nun, di ba? Siyempre naman, sir. So, ito, factor out natin yung m squared. So, m squared, m minus 1 minus m minus 1 equal to 0. Okay, now, common si m minus 1. So, factor out m minus 1. So, you have m squared minus 1 equal to 0. So, one of the roots is m sub 1 natin is, sulat lang natin, m minus 1 equal to 0 and m squared minus 1 equal to 0. So here you have m sub 1 is equal to positive 1 and here, transpose mo to magiging m squared is equal to positive 1. Take the square root of both sides. Itong m squared, dalawa yung ano niyan eh. Tama ba? Yeah. Take the square root. So m is equal to square root of 1. Yung square root of 1 is plus or minus yan, di ba? So dalawa yung nare-represent niya. Okay, so ibig sabihin yung roots natin dito will be m sub 2 is equal to 1. Yan, plus or minus 1. And then m sub 3 is equal to negative 1. Dalawang roots na parehong 1. And isa naman distinct root or different root which is negative 1. So how do you write your solution? So pwedeng mag-interchange yan silang dalawa. Pwedeng mauna muna yung distinct. So, but in this case, yung subscripts kasi natin, di ba? So m sub 1 natin and m sub 2, they are equal. So 1. And then m sub 3 is equal to negative 1. So this is how you write your solution. So e raised to x times, dalawa lang naman. So c sub 1 plus c sub 2, x. And then plus c sub 3, e raised to negative x. Okay, kita ba? Masyadong may ilaw. Kita? I hope so. Negative to ha. Ganun lang guys. Or pwedeng mauna ito kung halimbawa yung m sub 1 mo is negative 1 and m sub 2 and m sub 3 naman yung positive 1. So your y is equal to c sub 1 e raised to negative x plus e raised to x c sub 2 plus c sub 3 x. Naka-factored form tong ano natin. Pwede mong distribute naman yan. Okay? Ayos ba? Number 2. Yan, last example natin. 4d raised to 4. Gusto yung subukan? Sige, subukan nyo din habang sinusubukan ko dito. Para bigay nyo sa akin yung one possible root. 4d raised to 4. Ilang roots ang in-expect natin? Ha?
4 po.
4, okay. So dahil 4, apat din yung arbitrary constants mo. Right? C sub 1 hanggang C sub 4. Sige, next time ko na lang di-discuss yung repeating. Yung imaginary pala. Kasi discuss ko muna yung Euler equation. Okay? Diderive natin yung Euler equation. 23d squared plus. Actually, yung part ng Euler equation sa complex numbers na sa advanced engineering mathematics. So meron kayong advanced engineering math, yan, next semester. Pag naipasa nyo na yung DE. Okay. 12D plus 36. Ayan. Ayan, kasi may ano na pala dito. Ayan, Euler equation. Okay, so let's continue. So we have written the auxiliary equation, and then we find for the roots by synthetic division. So yeah, we have found out that the first two roots are 2, okay? And the other two roots here, negative 3 halves. So the solution will be, okay, saan natin susulat? Ito lang sa taas. Okay, naburahin ko na to. So y is equal to, because of yung roots nito, diba, m sub 1 is equal to m sub 2, which is 2. M sub 3 is equal to m sub 4, which is negative 3 halves. So we have e raised to 2x, c sub 1 plus c sub 2x plus e raised to minus 3x over 2. Continue lang yung subscript, c sub 3 plus c sub 4x. Oh, di ba? Ayos. Kita niyo ba? Parang malabo.
Kita po.
Kita. Yan. So, madali lang, no?